Hello humans! About a year ago, I did a video where I talked about my top 10 favorite Disney heroines, so I figured I needed to do a video about my top 10 favorite Disney heroes, especially since I did a whole video about the problem with Disney's modern heroes. It only makes sense to talk about how they used to make great heroes. This was definitely harder for me because I've usually connected more to female characters, so it took me more time to figure out my top 10 list for the heroes. Just like in my top 10 Disney heroines list, I'll only be including animated heroes, so no live actions will be included. I also won't be including adding characters from TV shows, but I will be including characters from Disney sequels and Pixar. Before we begin, please keep in mind that this is going to be heavily biased, so your favorites might not necessarily be my favorite, and vice versa. Feel free to share your favorites and thoughts on my list, just don't be about it. Now without further delay, let's dive right on in. Number 10. Stitch from the Lilo and Stitch franchise. First of all, my wife and I literally have plushies of Stitch and Angel, so of course I'm a major fan of Stitch. I've been a fan of this franchise ever since I first saw it when I was a little merboy. Stitch has become such a popular character that he's just as iconic as Mickey Mouse, Tinkerbell, Winnie the Pooh, and the Disney princesses. He started off as a creature of pure destruction, since that's what he was designed for. I love how they made sure he was hilarious as well as adorable, to give the audience a reason to love him before his development. A lot of the times, characters that are so harsh don't have reasons for us to find them engaging to where we care about their development. But by making him adorable and funny, it makes him entertaining. But when we get to his development, it's heartwarming. There's a question of what happens when there's nothing left for Stitch to destroy. He's left with nothing but emptiness. He discovers compassion and love with his found family. Much like Lilo, he's an outcast due to being a creature that was made for nothing but to destroy. He sees the consequences of violence and chaos, with how he hurt Lilo and Nani's chances of staying together. He's drawn to the ugly duckling story because he feels lost in the world. I love the detail where Jumba is coming after him at Lilo's house. He doesn't hide behind her, but instead puts himself in front of her. That shows growth from before where he just saw her as a shield, but now genuinely cares about her. His friendship with Lilo is so flippin' sweet, and one of the best platonic relationships from Disney. It continues to be awesome in other projects, especially the excellent TV series. Number 9. Woody from the Toy Story franchise. I'm only taking into account the first 3 movies, as I don't consider any of the movies afterwards to be canon with how they mess things up so badly. Not to mention how afterwards, they just love to make fun of Woody, make him miserable, and ruin his arc from the first 3 movies. Anyway, much like the Lilo and Stitch franchise, I've been a major fan of Toy Story ever since I first saw it. Woody has always been my favorite. I love how he's sassy and stubborn, but can make mistakes that hurt others and has to reflect on it. He's allowed to be called out on his actions when he's hurt others, but he's still shown to be a good person that genuinely cares about his friends and his kid. He's a natural born leader that is respected for good reason, though isn't a total stick in the mud, since he's a playful tease as well. He's also one of the most developed characters in the Disney universe, which isn't surprising when you consider his arc extends beyond a single movie. He had to learn that it doesn't matter how much he's played with or being the favorite, but rather being there for his kid, that he has to face the inevitable that Andy will grow up and finally letting go of the past and moving on. He's a really complex character that feels so real because in each movie in the original trilogy, he learns something essential. That makes sense because we're always growing and learning something. We never stop learning and growing. I'm not that into westerns, but this is a cowboy that I'll never get tired of. Number 8. Eric from The Little Mermaid, the first Disney prince that was actually good since he was the first one to have a personality rather than being a flat archetype. He's adventurous, kind, brave, loves animals, is playful, caring, witty, and absolutely genuine. I've heard people claim that he's bland, but I have to disagree. He honestly feels like an update to the Prince Charming archetype that the previous Disney princes were, but given an actual personality so the audience can get invested in him. He prefers an adventurous life at sea rather than being cooped up in a castle, so he's naturally compatible to Ariel. Plus, he's refreshing after all the jerk heroes we've been getting lately that are major red flags. I mean, this is a man who saw a woman that he believed had been through some sort of trauma and brought her to his castle to get some help for her, with no thought of getting something from her. Not to mention how he jumped back on a burning ship to save his dog and nearly died doing so. The man is a major green flag, as well as the fact that before Ursula put a spell on him as Vanessa, he was willing to give up his fantasy fantasy girl in favor of going after Ariel. Even though Ariel was his fantasy girl, he risked his life to save her after learning the truth about her being a mermaid, refusing to leave her in danger, and took down Ursula, proving to Triton that not all humans are bad. I also love that he embraces Ariel's eccentric behavior rather than being put off by it. He gave her someone besides Flounder and Scuttle that truly understood her. Seriously, he's such an underrated character that deserves more love. Honestly, people should be pining for Eric instead of Flynn Rider, especially since he's a lot healthier and humble. Let's give genuinely good guys like Eric the love they deserve. Number 7. Hercules.
Honey, you mean Hercules!
You know I had to include that. Anyway, much like Eric, Hercules is a genuinely good guy that's honest and sweet. He's humble but can be a little cocky at times. Kind, caring, brave, determined, clumsy without being his most defining character trait. Funny, and is allowed to be naive while also being an action hero. Most of the time with action heroes, they're pretty jaded or serious, but he's allowed to stand out by having a naivety to him. I also love that even though he has feelings for Meg, when she's throwing herself at him to seduce him, he's clearly uncomfortable with those advances and would rather not do something that he isn't ready for. He's treating her like a person rather than giving into lustful desires. He's reckless and can lose his temper, but it usually comes from good intentions. Plus, after being treated like a freak for his uncontrollable strength for his entire life, it makes sense that he would get a little cocky when he finally gets praised as a hero. But he's never cocky to the point of being a jerk or full-on arrogant. He's still a genuinely good guy that cares about others. Plus, his experience of being treated poorly by others for something that he can't control, as well as being literal-minded and unable to read certain social cues, makes him very autistic-coded, which I am all for as someone who is autistic. He relied a lot on his physical strength to get by, but he had to learn that brute force can't get you everywhere. He had to learn to use his head, especially when he lost his strength. A true hero isn't measured by the size of his strength, but by the strength of his heart. He was willing to die to save others even though he didn't have his strength. He was willing to give his own life to bring Meg back to life, and even gave up his godhood to be with her. He sees the best in her, despite being a woman that society considers disposable due to not being quote-unquote pure. He didn't care about any of that nonsense, especially when it doesn't matter, and just saw her for who she truly is. I've heard people say Hercules himself is the wink lake of the cast, but I have to disagree. He is one of the highlights. Not as much as Meg or Hades, but he's still awesome. He continued to show how great he was in the TV series, despite the massive and numerous continuity issues. Number 6. Koda from Brother Bear. Before anyone says that Koda's not a hero but a side character, he's the dude-antagonist of the film and the one who inspires development in Kenai the same way Lilo does with Stitch. Although in Lilo's case, she's just as much of a protagonist as Stitch. I honestly do see a lot of myself in Koda from when I was a kid. Granted, I wasn't extroverted like him, but I would talk a lot about things that I was excited or passionate about. Though I eventually gave that up when older relatives of mine either ignored me or told me to shut up because they didn't care. Probably explains why I have trouble opening up. I also relate to Koda for being such a hyper, happy, and fun-loving kid, which is how I used to be as a kid until life kicked me down. So when I watched him just enjoy every part of life and continue to talk to others without caring if anyone finds him annoying, it honestly heals my childhood. Plus, he reminds me of my wife because of how she's extroverted, takes pleasure in the simple things, and talks a lot, to the point she'll share whatever she's fixating on, no matter if anyone isn't interested. That's probably one of the reasons why we both love this kid so much. But I love that he's sassy and will stand up for himself, especially when Kenai doesn't treat him well. Kids are often told that they should respect adults, even when they don't treat them well or give them the same respect. After all, respect is a two-way street. He represents that imaginative and fun-loving childlike innocence that we all used to have and lost because we grew up. Not to mention, he's absolutely adorable with some of the best lines in this movie. He represents seeing the good and innocence in life while still being entertaining and really funny. He feels like a real kid. It would have been really easy to make him annoying, but they managed to tread the line perfectly to make him one of the best child characters ever. We should all be more like Koda by enjoying life the way he does, and not caring so much about what others think. He's ultimate must protect at all costs. Without him, the movie wouldn't work, since he's a major part of the emotional core. And now I really need to get around to hunting down some Brother Bear merch. Number 5. Quasimodo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. If you watched my Hunchback of Notre Dame video, you already know just how much I adore Quasimodo. Like I mentioned, he's very autistic coded. I don't want to repeat myself too much, so I'll try to summarize. His relationship with Frollo mirrors those toxic parents that mistreat autistic children. His deformity being similar to how some autistics aren't able to mask. Social awkwardness, hyperfixations, getting overstimulated, and how he's considered an outcast for something he has no control of. But even without that, I love how he's passionate, kind, caring, shy, awkward without being his most defining trait, creative, playful, introverted, and has a feminine quality to him without being ridiculed for it. He even puts aside how hurt he is that Esmeralda, who he has a crush on, doesn't feel the same way about him to help her and rejoice in her happiness in the end. He's able to see that her friendship is more than enough for him and wants her to be happy because he's a genuinely good person rather than a self-proclaimed nice guy. He's honestly one of the biggest sweethearts Disney has ever created. Despite his rough yet still cuddly exterior, he is so gentle, such as when he helps that baby bird finally fly. But he resorts to violence if those he cares about are in danger. Plus, as someone who is introverted, it's nice to see a male character like that as the protagonist. It helped me feel seen growing up. He's such a wonderful character and one of the best parts of his movie. We need more men like him, and it would be nice to see Disney do another introverted, soft-spoken protagonist so we can get more variety among the jerk heroes and adorable heroines. Number 4. Kenai from Brother Bear. Hey, I never said that two characters from the same movie couldn't make the top 10. As a kid, I was Koda, but I grew up to be Kenai, someone who is grumpy, jaded, cynical, and cares more about the destination than the journey. I also love how he's playful and mischievous, to help balance him out and make him more likable. Plus, I relate to that as someone who's very playful and mischievous. Plus, he's really funny, not only with his comedic moments, but also his sass. You know me, I love me a sassy character. Although, one thing of Kenai's I've never had is his toxic idea of masculinity. He believed to be a man, one must show strength and dominance, while rejecting traits that are more traditionally feminine, like love and compassion. I love how Kenai has to learn what it truly means to be a man by becoming a bear. It was his toxic masculinity actions and beliefs that got him into this mess, and he needed to see things from a different perspective. He needed to see things from another's eyes, to see how your actions can affect someone. He learned that he isn't above animals like bears, and that every creature has feelings and emotions. Love isn't weakness, but the greatest strength of all. It's so unique to have a male protagonist have to embrace more feminine qualities and acknowledge the toxic behaviors that boys are taught to emulate growing up are harmful. Kenai's development is so meaningful and something all boys should watch, so they can see what it truly means to be a man, but more importantly, a good person. Not to mention that he's a little brother that had to take on responsibility of being a big brother to Koda. A great message of found family that's helped by just how likable both of these characters are. Kenai is such an underrated protagonist that everyone needs to stop sleeping on. Number 3. Tarzan. I absolutely adore this movie, and Tarzan is one of the reasons why. Just like Jane, he's one of the biggest, if not the biggest highlight. He's smart, energetic, determined, complex, brave, kind, gentle, playful, witty, and sassy. I love how this Tarzan has much more personality compared to other versions, where he's pretty stiff and stoic. He feels like a real person with a fleshed out character. He's able to be serious and do the cool action scenes that we expect from the character, but he can also be really funny with moments my wife and I are constantly quoting. His playful and mischievous moments give him so much character that shows how multidimensional he is. I love how he's naive but isn't treated as stupid for not understanding things. It's honestly so endearing to see a naive man being curious about something and having a desire to know more about it without infantilizing him. I love his internal struggle of being a man that was raised by apes and being so confused about who he is. Both as a child and as an adult, it's extremely complex and compelling. This movie makes me cry, and his journey is a major part of that. Not to mention his action scenes are so intense, especially the scene where he saves Jane from the baboons. Plus he has some really awesome facial expressions. I can see so much personality in him without him having to say a single word. He also feels very autistic coded with how he's treated as an outcast for being different, though representing the more quote-unquote polite ostracization. Doesn't understand social cues or personal boundaries, has his naivety taken advantage of, tries to emulate the quote-unquote normal people, learns how to speak with the echolalia technique, which a lot of autistics do, and has to find creative ways to function that others don't have to. This is by far the definitive version of Tarzan. It's not even close, and he continued to show his greatness in the TV series. Number 2. Scamp from Lady and the Tramp 2, Scamp's Adventure. If you've watched my video about Lady and the Tramp 2, Scamp's Adventure, you already know how much I adore Scamp, and that he's, you guessed it, very autistic coded. Scamp is a painfully accurate depiction of adolescence for boys. Getting into fights with his dad, being restless, is rambunctious, longs to live his own life, tries to act cool but ends up looking like a dork, and is awkward around girls his age. I pretty much was Scamp when I was a teenager, and I'm still a lot like him. He's adventurous, fun-loving, sweet, funny, sincere, headstrong, rebellious, and absolutely adorable. I love that instead of portraying his desire to be wild and free as in the right, they show that he's clearly in the wrong, while still allowing us to feel for his frustrations with the house dog life and his strained relationship with his father. It shows that kids don't know what they're doing a lot of the time, due to their inexperience and naivety. Does he make some bad decisions? Yes, but those mistakes are all part of growing up, and that's what his story is about. He learns the value of family thanks to his romance with Angel, as well as how the villain Buster betrayed him. Even before that, he's shown to have a loving side to him with how he loves playing with Junior, wanted to play with his dad, and how he felt guilty about seeing how much his family missed him. Not to mention that he risked his life to save Angel from being sent to the pound, as well as gave her someone that she could be vulnerable with. People love to just write him off as a whiny brat, but that's just a superficial and surface level reading of his character. He's not a brat, but rather just a preteen or early teenage boy going through growing pains and trying to come into his own in this world. Something a lot of people struggle with, and he's a wonderful representation of that. He's one of my favorite fictional characters, and that will never change. Before I reveal my number one favorite, let's name some honorable mentions in no particular order. Tigger from the Winnie the Pooh franchise, Jim Hawkins from Treasure Planet, Max Goof from a Goofy movie, Goofy from a Goofy movie, Shang from Mulan, Buzz Lightyear from the Toy Story franchise, Dash from the Incredibles franchise, Flick from A Bug's Life, Beast from Beauty and the Beast, Cody from The Rescuers Down Under, Kovu from The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, Patch from 101 Dalmatians 2, Patch's London Adventure, Tramp from Lady and the Tramp, Pinocchio, Robin Hood, Phoebus from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Pooh from the Winnie the Pooh franchise, Todd from The Fox and the Hound, Copper from The Fox and the Hound, Cusco from The Emperor's New Groove, Piglet from the Winnie the Pooh franchise, Donald Duck, Sully from Monsters Inc., Mike from Monsters Inc., Remy from Ratatouille, Miguel from Coco, Charing from Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time, and Luca. Now for my number one. And my number one favorite Disney hero is Aladdin. I mean, this shouldn't be a surprise. Never has Disney ever managed to top Aladdin as the greatest male protagonist that they've ever created. He's clever, determined, rebellious, sassy, kind, caring, defends others, is adventurous, creative, and is an absolute green flag. First of all, I love that even though he's a thief, he doesn't steal valuables, but rather just steals food in order to survive. Even after going through so much trouble just to get food for himself and Abu, he gives it away when he sees two starving kids. This shows just what a genuinely good person he is, not to mention that when he helps Jasmine, despite being attracted to her, he states that she's his sister rather than his wife or girlfriend. If any of Disney's jerk heroes were in that situation, they'd definitely be forcing themselves onto Jasmine if they helped her. But Aladdin has the decency to keep the pretend relationship platonic, so she's comfortable and isn't being pressured to do anything she doesn't want to do. While he can be cocky, it comes up more like he's confident rather than an arrogant jerk. But even with his confidence, he's insecure due to how everyone has looked down upon him for being a street rat his entire life. Bad faith critics write him off as a whiny pathological liar when he really isn't. To be a pathological liar, you have to lie compulsively even when there's no clear reason or personal gain. Aladdin only lied so he and Jasmine could be together, and out of fear that despite them clearly having a mutual attraction, she would look down upon him like everyone else, because that is how everyone has treated him for his whole life. She even understands why he did what he did, especially with the stupid law that only a prince can marry a princess. Aladdin has to learn that he never needed to change who he was because he was already a good person, and that was who Jasmine fell in love with. Not to mention, it was his clever quick thinking that helped him out, not only with getting a free wish from the genie, but also with tricking Jafar into becoming a genie and therefore trapping him. He's continued to be awesome in the rest of the Aladdin franchise. I particularly love in the episode Eye of the Beholder, he was willing to give up his own humanity when it looked like Jasmine would never become human again. Aladdin is the gold standard of the dashing and charming rogue that Disney has never managed to recapture, despite their many failed attempts. I relate to Aladdin and see a lot of myself in him. He's an awesome character and the best out of all of Disney's heroes. And those were my top 10 favorite Disney heroes, so what did you guys think? Did you agree with any of my choices? What are your top 10 favorite Disney heroes? Let me know in the comments. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you want to help my channel take off so I can do this as a full-time job, which I would really appreciate. If you want to show some extra support, you can send me money through the YouTube Super Thanks. You can also check out my other social media accounts in the links below. I'm the Wicked Merman from Under the Sea.